Hi guys, in this tutorial we are going to be looking at Cinema 4D's target camera expression. Okay, so the target camera is an exceptionally useful tool for allowing you to control what your camera is pointing at. The target camera can be found under the camera icon up here. If I click and hold, you've got a standard camera and then you have a target camera. So I'm just going to create one of those. Now, as with other cameras, it creates a target camera exactly where my editor camera is at the moment. So if I was just to move my editor camera, you can see that there we've got the little representation of my camera that I've just created. Now, when you create a target camera, it adds a couple of different things. One, we have a target expression tag, which is attached to the camera, okay, which I shall go through in a minute. And then we have the target one camera target. This is what the camera is pointing at. The target expression has a target object in it, and that is the null object that has been created. So wherever I move that null object, that target camera will point to. It doesn't move the camera in space, it will just change its rotation, but it's very useful if you have something that you want the camera to follow. So if I was to animate this target camera, so say at the beginning of my animation I keyframe it there, okay, and then say at 45 frames I move it up there and click keyframe, that target will move and the target camera will follow that. Okay, so if you have a particular object that you want your camera to follow, you could make the null object a child of that object. Equally, under the target camera expression, you can choose what target your camera will follow. So if I was to create a cube, okay, and let's say move it up there for the moment, and then I was to animate that, so say at 45 and 90, okay, and I was to animate it going from there to there, that cube is now moving between one and the other. If I was to simply change the target object by dragging and dropping the cube in, okay, you can see that my camera will now follow that, and obviously at the beginning, because I've changed that object that it follows, will completely ignore the null object. But one of the nice things that you can do in Cinema 4D is you can choose and animate what your camera follows using this little animation button here and changing the target. So if at the beginning of the animation I wanted it to follow the target up to a certain point, okay, I would drag and drop it into there and press keyframe, and then say at 45, where it gets to roughly the right direction I wanted it to change, I can drag and drop that cube in there and then click keyframe. Okay, and now if I scrub between the two, the camera will work its way between one and the other. Now if I just look through that camera, you can see that the camera is moving and it starts to look towards the cube, and then it takes over from the cube and it works its way following that cube, keeping it in the center of that camera. Now this is a really nice little flow, and what it does, what Cinema 4D does between the two keyframes is, rather than just snapping, is it merges the positions together. So it works out the best route that that camera can take to ensure that when it takes over from that object, it's not a complete sharp cut. You can change that if you particularly want to, okay, by clicking the keyframe and changing from interpolation linear to step. Now if I was to go back to the beginning, it's rigidly following that, and then there is that little jump. Can you see there's that jump? Whereas if it stays on linear, then it allows that smooth transition between the two, from one to take over to the other, changing that target quite nicely. Okay, so that is a very short tutorial on how to use the target camera and the target expression in Cinema 4D. Again, I hope this was helpful, and I will catch you next time.